Before we start the video, I'd like to make an announcement. The HMS Hood video will be delayed for at least a month while I muster up the willpower to finish the darn thing, which will be as enjoyable for me as being forced to watch Hamilton. In the meantime, here's this kit I ordered about 2 months ago. The HASEGAWA 1/700 scale Japanese battleship Hyuga. I was surprised to learn that HASEGAWA made full hull kits, as I'd never seen them before, but they do. The only thing I have to complain about so far is that the Amazon listing is a different version of the kit that shows the ship in its hybrid battleship carrier configuration, as it would have looked at the end of World War II. The kit contains 8 plastic sprues, 1 sheet of photo-etched metal, 12 brass barrels for the main guns, a wooden display base, a brass nameplate, a massive decal sheet, and a set of propellers that appear to be cast out of pewter or some similar metal. Starting as per usual with the hull, it comes in 4 parts, split both at the waterline and along the keel. The stabilizer fins are separate pieces for some reason. This rudimentary assembly is followed by the texturing of the hull, done as always with a few generous coats of primer and strips of masking tape. The primer that is deposited over the areas not covered by masking tape will create a raised edge like you would find on overlapping armored plates on a ship's hull. My spray can ran out of paint, so I had to dig out this crusty bottle of watered down primer to finish the job. The next step is to attach the decks. A few bits here need to have holes drilled on them, which is accomplished with the help of a pin vise. The larger bits of the superstructure are molded directly onto the decks, like the turret barbettes, but some smaller pieces still need to be glued on. Then, the propeller shafts and rudders are attached. I forgot to hit the record button before I put them on, but they were simple 2-part assemblies with 4 propellers in total, 2 on each side. The guide pins for the rudders were a bit short, so I had to use a lot of glue to coax them into their mounting holes. Lastly, for now, are the 16 secondary guns mounted in casements, 8 on each side, all of them immovable, but I wasn't going to move them anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Now we get to the photo-etched bits, starting with the railings. Each piece of railing has these little metal feet that need to be bent at a 90-degree angle. Just getting the railings off the photo-etched sheet was a difficult task. If you ever build this kit, you might have to break out the angle grinder unless you want to dull all of your hobby knives. Then, bending the railings into shape requires Herculean strength. Hopefully, this means the metal is stronger, right?
Wrong.
Nope. In fact, they're even more of a pain in the butt than the brass I'm accustomed to. When I bend the feet of the railings, I inevitably also bend the railings, and once they're bent one way, it becomes nearly impossible to bend them back, all while they're exactly as fragile as the brass railings. At least half of them broke, and the superglue didn't help whatsoever. In fact, I'd like to talk about superglue. I have no idea what kind of hellish alchemy goes into making this stuff, but it's pure evil. It makes your eyes water, it chemically burns microfiber towels, it sticks to everything except when you want to, like your fingertips, your tools, and your clothing. There's no way to apply a controlled amount of it, and it doesn't come off without a fight. I took a break from the railings to attach a few more plastic pieces, like this side bit that houses the crane used to retrieve the ship's reconnaissance float planes from the water. After that, I installed the last of the railings on the upper decks and the stern. Next up to build are the weapons. Starting with the main armament, we have 6 twin turrets housing a dozen 45 caliber 36 centimeter or 14-inch guns. The design of the Japanese 14-inch gun is heavily derived from the British-built Vickers 14-inch guns found on the 4 Congo-class battlecruisers, which themselves were of British origin, having been designed by British architect Sir George Thurston and built in British shipyards, specifically the Vickers Armstrong shipyard in Barrow-in-Furness. After the Congos, all subsequent Japanese ships were built in Japan. The Hyuga was laid down in the Mitsubishi shipyard in Nagasaki, while her sister ship and the lead ship of the class, the Issei, was laid down at the Kawasaki shipyard in Kobe. The kit contains instructions and parts for an iteration of the Hyuga, wherein the number 5 turret has been replaced by 4 triple-barrel anti-aircraft guns. I won't be building that variant though. The last thing to be assembled is a pair of twin 12.7 centimeter Type 89 anti-aircraft guns which come from the exact same sprues as were in the Fuso kit. The next thing I did was build the superstructure and all the various accessories that I still had to put together. I start with the command bridge, which, like on the Fuso, starts out with a wide base which has a pair of Type 89 AA guns on either side of it. Unlike the Fuso, however, the structure tapers inward as it goes upward and doesn't have any large platforms awkwardly jutting out. There is a smattering of different size rangefinders and their cylindrical housings that go all over the structure, and a radar apparatus goes on top of the structure, with the only photo-etched piece for this assembly being the antenna for this radar. Next to the rearmost part of the superstructure, the ship's main mast. The assembly for this one is simple, with a few large pieces making up most of the structure. There's a viewport which overlooks the aft section of the ship, a few rangefinders, a few small AA guns, and a large mast which is topped with a few photo-etched bits. The one on the very top will disappear later, and that's because it fell off and vanished among the other bits of microscopic debris littering the floor of my workspace. Additionally, it's become impossible to work at night because 2 crickets have infiltrated my workspace, and the second it turns dark, they begin chirping non-stop at headache-inducing frequencies. They're even doing it right now as I'm scripting the video. It might drive me insane if it doesn't deafen me first. The last pieces that need to be assembled are the funnel, the aircraft catapult, a crane, a few cutter boats, and a few lifeboat davits. The funnel was easy, including the scaffolding that wraps around it and holds up the platforms for spotlights and anti-aircraft guns. The difficult part came with the other photo-etched bits, like the exhaust grate, which I broke because the instructions lacked a clear description of how it was to be bent into shape. It's at this point I noticed the really inconsistent quality of the metal. Sometimes it was easily workable, and sometimes it was as difficult and frustrating as trying to have an intelligent conversation with someone who just repeats everything you say in an obnoxious voice. Alright, this is where the fun ends. Before painting an assembly, everything I've just put together needs to be coated in a single even layer of primer. The airbrush primer I've been previously using suddenly decides it doesn't want to work, so I have to give it a proper dignified burial. The hull is primed though, so I give it its first color, the red anti-fouling paint. I considered mixing up an approximation of Tamiya's hull red, but that looked too dark, so I stuck with the ordinary flat red I used for the Fuso. I get to work on the deck next, starting at the aft, where the float plane launch deck is. This is a linoleum-like material with a reddish-brown color like the one I mixed up in this grimy, disgusting glue bottle. I coax the last bit of paint out of it and spray it on. The rest of the deck receives a coat of generic, "What the heck is wrong with this paint?" Oh, okay, I just needed to shake the paint bottle. Anyway, as I was saying, the deck receives a coat of generic tan and then is masked off. The main color of the ship will be Tamiya XF-87, the gray for the Maizuru Arsenal. Why? I don't know! Because I want to, that's why. Now that the paint is dried, I can... Really? Really? Maybe I can cover it if I'm careful? Nope, and it isn't even the same shade of red. Now I have to repaint everything.
2 hours later.
Time to take the tape off of the deck, and you have gotta be kidding me. Okay, whatever, I can paint over it. I have to get everything else painted. Now that that's done, I can start assembly, and this is when stuff started breaking. A lot. So many things broke. So I had to do a little bit of impromptu repairs alongside painting the parts. Side note, when hand painting, please use Vallejo acrylics and not Tamiya acrylics. Your brushes will thank you. Do not do what I am doing because I do not know what I am doing. Vallejo acrylics are actually designed to be used with brushes, clean off very easily, and can be thinned with just water. The rest of the assembly is straightforward. The fit of the parts was not good and some things broke. A few of the turrets didn't fit well into their retaining rings, which is probably because they are solid plastic. The weird metal propellers didn't attach very easily and broke off several times. I took a break to calm down and came back the next day, finishing all the little work I had forgotten about previously. Now to talk about the ship itself. The Hyuga was the second ship of the 2-ship Ise class and was named after Hyuga province on the island of Kyushu. The ships were an improvement upon the Fuso class and were both laid down in 1915, although the Hyuga took 1 year longer to complete, being finished in April of 1918. The ship participated in a number of training exercises around Japan and China, particularly the coastal city of Tsingtao, which had been liberated from German occupation during the First World War by a joint Anglo-Japanese force. Hyuga took part in no major naval action during this time. In July of 1942, following the loss of 4 fleet carriers at the Battle of Midway, it was decided that the Ise and Hyuga would undergo conversion to battleship carrier hybrids. The rearmost turrets were removed and a flight deck, along with a pair of aircraft catapults, was installed on both ships. After this, they would participate at the Battle of Leyte Gulf, being part of a decoy force coming from the north under command of Admiral Jiseburo Osawa, along with Japan's last aircraft carriers and a few destroyer escorts. Both ships escaped the battle due to the sacrifice of one destroyer and the fact that the Americans were more interested in sinking the carriers. Neither ship ever acted effectively in the hybrid carrier role due to late war Japan's shortage of both planes and pilots, and both ships were sunk in harbor by American aircraft in 1945. Hyuga remained active for a short period thereafter before she was abandoned by her crew. She was raised and scrapped in 1946. The ship currently bearing the name Hyuga is a helicopter destroyer operated by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. Even though the JMSDF is basically a navy and the Hyuga is basically an aircraft carrier, they can't be referred to by those terms legally because Japan isn't allowed to have either as per the terms of the 1945 surrender document and their post-war constitution.